My husband didn't ask questions. He didn't ask for the truth. He didn't even look our 6-year-old son in the eyes. Instead, he stormed into our living room, slammed a DNA report onto the coffee table, and shouted loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "This child isn't mine." Then he pointed at the front door. "Pack your things. Both of you." I stared at the paper. One glance told me something was terribly wrong. The report wasn't just fake. It was designed to destroy my marriage. But my husband had no idea someone much closer to him had forged it. 9 years of marriage taught me one thing about my husband, Daniel. He never raised his voice. Even during our biggest arguments, he'd walk away, cool off, and come back ready to talk. That's why, when my front door burst open that Thursday evening, I knew something was terribly wrong before he said a single word. I was helping our 6-year-old son, Ethan, finish a dinosaur puzzle on the living room rug. Dinner was still warm on the stove. The house smelled like garlic bread, and the TV was quietly playing cartoons in the background. Daniel didn't even glance at us. His face was pale. His jaw was clenched so tightly, I thought he might break a tooth. Without taking off his coat, he marched straight to the coffee table and slammed a thick envelope onto it so hard that Ethan jumped. "What is that?" I asked.
He ignored me.
Instead, he pulled several papers from the envelope and threw them across the table. "This," he shouted, "is proof." I stared at him, completely confused. Proof of what? He looked directly at Ethan before turning those cold eyes back to me. "This child isn't mine." The room went silent. For a second, I honestly believed I'd misheard him. Ethan looked up from the floor, clutching a plastic dinosaur in one hand. "Daddy." Daniel didn't answer him. He kept staring at me like I was a stranger. "I had a DNA test done," he said. "It came back negative. You've been lying to me for years." Every word hit harder than the last. Cheating? Lying? After everything we'd built together? I slowly picked up the papers. Across the top, in bold letters, were the words DNA paternity report. Below that, one sentence was highlighted. Probability of paternity, 0%. My hands trembled. "This can't be right," I whispered. "Oh, it's right," Daniel snapped. "I've already seen enough." He pointed toward the hallway. "Pack your things." I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." His voice echoed through the house. "You and him." He couldn't even say our son's name. "You can both be gone before morning." Ethan started crying. "Daddy, did I do something bad?" The sound of his little voice shattered something inside me. I wrapped my arms around him while trying to keep my own tears from falling. "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "You didn't do anything." Daniel grabbed his car keys from the counter. "I'll be staying with my brother tonight. When I come back tomorrow, I expect this house to be empty." Then he walked out. The front door slammed behind him. For several minutes, I just sat there on the floor, holding Ethan while he sobbed against my shoulder. I wanted to chase after Daniel. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to breathe. Then I looked back at the report. Something felt off. The logo looked blurry. The laboratory address seemed incomplete. The reference number wasn't centered like official documents usually were. And the signature at the bottom looked like it had been copied and pasted. My stomach tightened. Daniel had believed this report without asking me a single question. But I wasn't going to make the same mistake. After putting Ethan to bed, I picked up my phone and searched for the laboratory listed at the top of the page. The receptionist answered after 3 rings. I read her the report number. There was a long pause. Then she quietly said the words that changed everything. "Ma'am, we have never issued a DNA report with that number." In the next section, the mystery deepens as the narrator uncovers who forged the report, secures a court-certified DNA test, and begins building a case that will change everyone's lives. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Ethan's voice. "Daddy, did I do something bad?" No child should ever have to ask that question. By sunrise, I'd made 2 decisions. First, I wasn't begging Daniel to believe me. Second, I was going to uncover exactly who wanted to destroy my family. After dropping Ethan off at school, I drove straight to the laboratory whose name appeared on the fake report. The receptionist remembered our phone call from the night before. She examined the document carefully before disappearing into a back office. A few minutes later, the laboratory director joined us. "I'm very sorry," he said gently. "This isn't one of our reports." He pointed to several details I'd never noticed. The barcode was copied from an old template. The formatting belonged to a version they stopped using years ago. Even the doctor's signature had been digitally duplicated. Someone had spent real effort creating a convincing fake. Before leaving, I requested a legally certified DNA test through their office. If this nightmare ended in court, I wanted evidence no one could question. 2 days later, I met with a family attorney named Rebecca Lawson. She listened without interrupting while I explained everything. When I finished, she folded her hands across the desk. "If your husband threw you out based solely on a forged document," she said, "don't make emotional decisions. Let the facts speak." That became my plan. 3 anxious days later, the certified DNA results arrived. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The words blurred through my tears. Probability of paternity, 99.9999%. Daniel was Ethan's biological father, exactly as I'd always known. Relief lasted only a moment. Someone hadn't simply lied. Someone had carefully manufactured evidence to convince my husband that our son wasn't his. Rebecca began tracing every possible source. Who knew our personal information? Who could access Ethan's birth date? Who would benefit if our marriage collapsed? The answer kept leading back to one person. Daniel's younger sister, Melissa. From the day we married, she'd made it clear I wasn't the woman she wanted for her brother. She called me controlling because I encouraged Daniel to save money. She joked that Ethan looked nothing like the family. At every holiday dinner, she found some new way to question me. I'd always dismissed it as jealousy. Now it felt different. Rebecca hired an investigator. Within days, he uncovered something unexpected. Melissa had recently paid a freelance graphic designer online to recreate an official medical document. The payment matched the exact week Daniel claimed he'd received the DNA results. Then came the text messages. Melissa had repeatedly urged Daniel to stop ignoring the signs. One message chilled me. "If you don't verify the truth now, you'll waste the rest of your life raising another man's child." Daniel hadn't created the lie. He believed it. Completely. That evening, my phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice sounded nothing like the man who'd thrown us out. I think something's wrong with that DNA report," he said quietly. I looked at the certified results sitting on my kitchen table. He was finally beginning to question the lie. But it was too late. The next morning, before returning his call, I met Rebecca at the courthouse and filed for divorce. An hour later, Daniel was served the papers, still having no idea that the real DNA test proved Ethan had always been his son. Daniel showed up at the house less than an hour after being served. For the first time in 9 years, he looked afraid. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. He stood on the porch clutching the divorce papers with both hands. "Please," he said quietly, "just let me explain." I opened the door, but I didn't invite him inside. "There isn't much left to explain." He swallowed hard. Melissa admitted she pushed me into taking that report seriously. She said she found someone who could verify everything. I didn't know it was fake. I looked at him for several seconds before walking to the dining table. The certified DNA results were waiting exactly where I'd left them. I handed him the envelope. His hands shook as he opened it. The color drained from his face. He read the results once, then again, then a third time. Finally, he whispered the words I had waited weeks to hear. "Ethan is my son." He always was. He covered his mouth as tears filled his eyes. "I threw away my family." "No," I answered calmly. "You didn't throw us away that night. You threw us away the moment you trusted a piece of paper more than the people who loved you." He couldn't argue, because he knew it was true. A few days later, Melissa confessed everything in front of several family members. She admitted she'd never liked me. She believed Daniel deserved someone more successful. She also admitted she was terrified that once Daniel focused completely on his own family, he'd stop helping her financially. So she searched online for someone willing to recreate an official-looking DNA report. She never expected the lie to go this far. Daniel sat silently through her confession. When she finished, he stood up without saying a word and walked out. Later, he told his parents he wanted no further contact with her. But cutting ties with the person who deceived him couldn't repair the damage he'd done to us. Weeks passed. The divorce moved forward peacefully. Daniel didn't contest anything. He apologized every chance he got. Not because an attorney advised him to, because guilt had finally caught up with him. The hardest moment came when he visited Ethan. Daniel knelt with tears in his eyes and opened his arms. My son hesitated, then quietly asked the question neither of us will ever forget. How do I know you'll believe I'm your son next time? Daniel broke down crying.
So did I.
Children forgive more slowly than adults, not because they hold grudges, but because they remember exactly how rejection feels. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Ethan and I moved into a smaller home across town. It wasn't as big, it wasn't as fancy, but every room felt peaceful. There were no accusations, no secrets, no fear, just honesty. Sometimes people ask whether I regret filing for divorce after the truth came out. My answer is always the same. A fake DNA report didn't destroy my marriage. A forged document can't end a family. What destroyed it was the moment my husband chose suspicion over trust, and humiliation over the woman and child who had never stopped loving him. Trust isn't something you rebuild with apologies. It's something you protect before it's ever broken. And once it's gone, some doors close forever.